of March. And hopefully draw from the Beaumont Port Arthur group. We don't have a venue there. Well, actually, I think we do. I think Charlotte has lined up a room in the courthouse that we'll be doing in Beaumont. That's Jefferson County. April the 11th, in conjunction with PHCC, we're gonna be doing one in, is it Amarillo?
Yeah.
It's Amarillo. And I'm not sure whether you're lining up the venue or we're lining up the venue on that. I guess we'll find out.
I certainly can.
Okay. Amarillo will be April the 11th. And at this time, those are all the town halls that we have scheduled. Lisa,
We're in the process of pinning down something, for Beaumont right now.
okay, good deal.
Coming up as soon as we can make it work out. We're gonna use one of their, county facilities.
Oh, great.
Jefferson County. They
Good.
responded back to us today, as a matter of fact, so we got that working.
That's great. So anyway, we're real excited to get those going. Board members, any of these that you can attend, it really adds a lot to have a board member other than myself there. The attendees seem to really enjoy getting to meet you and know you and talk to you individually, especially after the meeting. So, if you can attend any or all of those, you're certainly welcome and it'll sure be appreciated.
I'm good for the San Antonio one. for
Great.
sure.
Right. The only other area that I've got in the area of outreach, I think that, PHCC was gracious enough to invite me to attend their board meeting on the 3rd of April. And so I'll be doing that. And other than that, we're gonna keep on keeping on. Kevin's keeping us as fast a pace as we can on our social media, trying to get information out. And that's about all I have. Kevin, did you have anything else or Tommy or about the town hall meetings that you wanted to?
No, I think they went pretty good for, the first two. Just, we need to get more community involvement, so,
We do.
yeah.
The one thing that has really proven to be the best way, and Norma did it in McAllen, is when you have the building inspectors send a notice to all the plumbers to come to the meeting, they show up. More so than the plumbing board or another plumber. So to the extent that we can, wherever we come into these venues, if we can get cooperation out of the plumbing inspectors or the building officials there to help us with invitations, I think it will help increase our attendance. The one thing that surprised me last time, it surprised me this time, and Kevin, maybe you can speak to this also, is the lack of information that our plumbers still have. It just absolutely astounds me, and I guess as much as we do, it's still not enough. Some of them don't even, it's just remarkable that, how many of you know we've got a Facebook page? Maybe 2 hands go up. Now, in the groups I'm talking about, out of 100 people, maybe 3 or 4 hands go up. How many of you ever been to the website? Maybe 2 or 3 hands go up. And I get it. Everybody's busy and nobody's tracking us like we're tracking us. They've got other things to do. But it's a little bit disheartening, is you do the best that you can to try to get information out there. So we'll continue to try to work on trying to reach as many as we possibly can. But it also underlines the importance of these town halls. They do like to be face to face, and they do like to talk to you, and they like to come up and ask questions and make suggestions. We're gonna fold a lot of the information that we're gathering at these town halls into our strategic plan, because that's one of the questions we ask at our town halls, is what would you like to see the plumbing agency the next 3 to 5 years? Where should we be headed? We'll be gathering information from the staff. We'll be sending out a survey, I understand, pretty quick to consumers. And we're trying to gather information from the plumbing community too. So anyway, a lot going on, a lot of excitement. Tommy, anything else you wanna add on the town hall meetings?
I thought it went pretty well, and, just to counter what you just said, I think it might just be a demographic thing, whereas most of the people in the room are, I would say, 40 and above, which is pretty indicative of the plumbers, in the state of Texas, the average age of what, I think we're down to, what was it, 50?
55 for a master.
Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, I think if you polled, or if you've got a room full of apprentices and recent journeymen, I think the percentage of people with access to information that would access the website would be 90% plus.
Probably better, you're right.
And, you take some of these, people my age and older and get them on the website, they're gonna fumble around and struggle with finding the right button and filling things out. And these kids are, filling out 6 applications to play a video game on their phone, so, there's just a technology gap, I think.
I think you're exactly right. You are right. I got tickled when you said the average age of the master plumber is 55. Kevin, that was part of Kevin's presentation. And Kevin made a comment, he said, I'm surprised how old he was. I thought to myself, I'm surprised how young he was. So anyway, it's kind of funny, the perceptions of Kevin versus me. If you remember 2 or 3 years ago, that average age was 62. When I first got here, that was one of the numbers that really surprised me. And it's a frightening number when you look at a plumbing industry with a master plumber being average age being 62 years old. I'm happy to see that number starting to come down a little bit. It's trending in the right direction. And 55 is not that old, Kevin, I'll just tell you, so.
No comment.
Anyway, that's all I have on, outreach or demographics. Next item on and let me say, it's 10:20. I think this meeting, we don't have that heavy an agenda, so I think what I'm gonna try to do is let's get all the way through it. And then after the meeting, we'll have some lunch, some sandwiches are being brought in for lunch, but let's go ahead and get through the meeting. And then we'll break for lunch afterwards and that'll adjourn it, so. So we won't break for lunch, we'll try to get through before we eat lunch. Lisa, why don't you talk a little bit about this high school accelerated training program, the HATS program? That's something you've been working on.
Excuse me, and what it is the HATS is the High School Accelerated Training Program. We had to come up with an acronym in order to identify all those individuals that are gonna go through the high school program that so many of the high schools are starting now. And we threw it up in the air, no pun intended, but that's what stuck was HATS, and that's how we laid it out. And we did that because we needed a designation in order to locate them in our system. But we also are gonna use a separate form so that we make sure that we don't miss anyone. We're gonna put it on the website and push it, but there's no fee attached for those kids in high school because they're not required to register as an apprentice, if you remember that within the 636. But it's gonna help them retain any hours, and what we're already seeing is we have about a dozen of them that have, signed up for high school programs, and we visited with the high schools. But what we're seeing too is some of them are actually going out working on the weekends with a plumber. And this will give them a way to track their hours, and it also gives us a way to identify them should they leave the program and come back in the program. So in the short version is we're calling them HATS, but you'll see them out on the website, should a person wanna employ or look for a person that's in one of those programs. Down at the very bottom where you see the endorsements and all the different information and fingerprint information, it'll have the word HATS.
I had someone call me last week from one of the school districts up in the Panhandle, asking if there was a requirement that they had to be apprentices. And I told them it absolutely was not a requirement, but I spoke with them about the HATS program.
Yeah.
Suggested that they take a look at it and consider doing that.
We don't want anyone to lose any credit or any time if they've gone to the trouble of getting in a program in school. And, maybe they jumped out of the program and stuck with whoever they were working with all summer long or whatever. Or spring break or whatever, and so it's a way to track them and, help them continue to move forward.
And I think it's a good idea to, although it's not required, to have that apprentice card kind of gives them buy-in in the occupation and the industry, and so it might help keep them in the program, you never know, so.
And it's a way for a plumber, if they're looking for one, oh, I want a young person that's in a program, they can tell that they're in that program by looking them up on the website.
You know, our high school program are we're getting some legs. Lynn, where did I see, don't we have like 60 high schools that have got a plumbing?
TEA sent us a list earlier in the year, earlier in 23, saying what schools have programs. And, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can find that list and send it back out.
I'm pretty sure it was 60.
That sounds about
It's stuck in my mind, but it was not clear to me whether they had the complete 2.5-year curriculum program or they just had plumbing
The list
in
of,
that.
yeah, the list we were given, I don't think made the designation between the two.
Yeah.
It was just these were schools that had plumbing programs.
But that's really exciting to start from zero and have 60 in a year and a half. I think is a pretty good start on plumbing. TSTC is gonna go from 1 campus to 4 campuses with a plumbing program. Lone Star College is gonna implement the full program. Collin Community College has got a program. St. Mary's in San Antonio. So we're doing what House Bill 636 was wanting us to do, and that's expanding to education, try to get more plumbers into the industry. So I think we're doing a pretty decent job. We've got to keep our foot on the pedal, because once you take your foot off the pedal, it'll go back down. So we always have to be mindful of promoting that program in high schools wherever we go. I don't know, for our town halls, did we invite high schools in the area, in the Houston area, to attend those?
It was my understanding we did.
We did, just didn't get a response on it.
I didn't do the invitations, but I asked for them to be invited. So I imagine that, they just didn't make it.
Okay, well, let's do that. I think we'll get a better participation from the high school programs and more rural, like Tyler and places like that, probably Abilene. So let's, whoever's putting together that list, let's be sure to include them along with legislators in the area and see if we can draw them into the program also. Item number 7. Report discussion on Texas Department of Information Resources, Artificial Intelligence. Board members and the public might be aware that, there was a piece of legislation filed during the last legislative session that required certain reporting responsibilities from agencies who are using artificial intelligence, such as Ask Kevin. And I guess maybe this was the first meeting that was held in conjunction with what our state agency is doing, and Kevin attended that. So Kevin, I'm gonna let you speak for just a second about what you heard at the meeting. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great meeting, actually. There were presentations by all the major internet companies, Adobe and Google, Accenture. And they made it very clear that they're aggressively pursuing AI in the public sector. Their presentations were great. 2 takeaways. Number 1, we are right where we need to be. Of course, we're not developing any AI related applications. We're using off-the-shelf software to deploy it. So a lot of the stuff that they were talking about is not where we're going yet. But in terms of, our compliance and our readiness for when this committee finally does start reviewing everything, we're going to be fine. The second takeaway was that Representative Capriglione, is that his name?
Yeah.
Sorry. He was there, and he was so knowledgeable. I was so encouraged, because I kind of, the way the committee has gone, at least from an outsider's perspective, it seemed like it's been a little slow in response, and things have been blowing up with AI recently. I haven't heard much from you know, the state. And, I was really encouraged by, Representative Capriglione's, knowledge. He is very on top of it. And he's the one who is leading the charge. He's in charge of this committee. So I think, you know, I'm very confident that actually that they're gonna be doing the right thing, on that level. So, yeah, it was a great meeting. And, oh, and the other thing is we got to join, I believe Lynn is in the user group with me as well. And they gave us some educational resources, related to AI. So it was very good.
That's good. I think we've got some reporting responsibilities to start when.
July of 24, we have a responsibility to inform a legislatively formed committee that of what we're doing using any form of AI. So, however, as of a month ago, and I'll look at Kevin to see if he has any different information, that committee had not been appointed.
Yeah.
And so we were hoping for it to be appointed and then give us some direction of what they want to see. So what we're doing is, you know, is just collecting our notes and our testing opportunities and getting it ready for whatever we may be asked for in 24.
You know, I have no doubt, because of the way that ours is structured, it's gonna be fully compliant. I think the concern that the legislature has, rightly so, is when AI starts making decisions about who gets a license or who doesn't get a license or who gets rejected because of certain criteria and who doesn't. And ours is not in the decision-making process, it's in the information process. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're not gonna run into any problem with what we're doing with it. And Lisa, is now a good time to talk about Kevin, or you wanna wait till later? About the activity going on our Ask Kevin?
I was gonna defer to Kevin. He pulled those numbers this morning. We've had a great response of
Do
late.
you wanna do it now, or do you wanna wait for your report?
Now's good.
Okay,
I can just nutshell it real quick.
okay,
We, for the first time, we ran out of message credits, which we did not expect to happen. And that this happened just the other day. We were able to get back up and running within a few hours, but that tells you that things are really blowing up. People are starting to use it a lot more. We're starting to use it a lot more internally. Last week, we averaged between 60 and 70 conversations a day, and that's all external. So, you know, everything is just exceeding our expectations in every way possible, I think. The other, let's see if I can pull this up real quick.
you know, that's pretty remarkable while Kevin's looking at that. If you're looking at 60 or 70 comments a day, that's potentially 60 or 70 emails that are not coming into the agency, or phone calls that are not being made, that they're getting their questions answered by Ask Kevin. So that's really a pretty remarkable number that's trying to address another issue of not being able to get in touch with someone to ask a question in the agency. Hopefully taking a little bit of heat off our continuing education providers too, who field a lot of those phone calls also. And I'll tell you, just anecdotally looking at Ask Kevin, and I don't use it as much as I used to, Kevin, so those numbers are not all me anymore. But the level of accuracy has increased in that, and it's real. I can see a difference in the responses. They're more on point, they're more comprehensive. It's amazing to me how this thing learns as it goes. It's pretty scary. It's pretty remarkable how it works. But I mean, for someone that's been using it since before we even introduced it, I can see a real improvement. And I know Kevin goes in and fixes a lot of things. Every time that we catch it with an incomplete or an inaccurate answer, we give it to Kevin and Kevin fixes it. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to this broadcast, if you do an Ask Kevin search and you think it's inappropriate or incorrect or not conclusive, let us know so that we can fix it. Because that's our intent, is to continue to improve it as we go, so. What were you looking for, Kevin?
I'll just really quick nutshell, I know you guys can't read this, but the 3 lines in the center are all above 60 and 2 of them are above 70. This is just last week. So that, I mean, that's huge. The average length of conversations tends to be around 4 messages. You know, I'm not sure exactly how useful that is. I just thought it was very interesting. So people are actually dialoguing with it unless they're asking separate questions. And then I did a word cloud of, this is just most frequent words from last week. You can see need, license, master, test, exam are the biggest ones there. So reflecting, you know,
The larger the font on that letter is, the more it's used in the questions that are being asked. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, so all in all, I think people are really starting to use it. And at the town halls, we actually asked if anyone had heard of it, and most people had not heard of it.
Yeah.
But we had a bunch of people come up to us afterwards, and they were doing it during the meeting, and they were all
And you know what he told me? That I've already answered that question once. It got a little bit of an attitude. But anyway, I think that's a great tool, and again, we always appreciate Kevin for bringing that to us, and we're gonna continue to use it and expand it. Board members, any questions or comments about the?
Kevin, does that thing track specific industry users? In other words, are our plumbers using it or community, public? Where's the most usage? Can we track that?
We can't track that right now because we don't have it retrieving any information from the user. And, you know, we can look at our web hits, but it doesn't really track that kind of information. I think, you know, Ask Kevin 3.0 might have those types of features, but we're still just making sure it answers the questions properly right now.
You know, and I question whether or not we actually want to do that.
Yes.
I think the questioner might want to remain anonymous. I don't want to deter somebody asking questions that might be embarrassed or don't want them to know I didn't know that or something like so. So maybe it's not a bad thing that we can't or don't track that and not. What do you think?
Well, anonymity is one thing, but.
I know what you're saying is,
We know it's a plumber, it's not relative to who he is, it's just that it's specific to the industry.
yeah,
Would be
But the
kind of
other
helpful.
thing is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but the other thing is that when you start collecting that data, you create more work and more jobs and more rules and regulations that we're gonna fall under too. And, so there's a point there, if we're not required to collect some of that, my preference is to not collect it.
yeah, we're not even considering it right now, but I question whether or not we even need to move in that direction. It's an informational source. It's to try to cut down on the number of calls and emails we're getting. It's to push information out to the plumbing community, whether it be public or plumbers or potential plumbers.
And the only reason I was asking simply because are we doing an effective job of communicating that out to our plumbers? Like you said at the town hall meeting, nobody knew.
Right.
And then all of a sudden what can we do that's more proactive? Is that, once the plumbers are totally informed, is that gonna go from 70 to 140?
Yeah, that'll be a question.
Yes.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely, but I tell you, just anecdotally from what we saw, 95% of people don't know anything about Ask Kevin. And that, I find that 95% of the people that we ask, I'll put it that way. And obviously it was small samples, but
Your program.
Justin,
Yeah, and Darren was just saying the same thing, but is that something that we could ask our continuing education providers to help us with, to get the word out?
I bet they do.
Cause, yeah, cause I mean, you know, obviously every plumber's gotta go through that.
It's in the 2024 curriculum.
Is it already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So
Oh, it is?
at some point, that's,
why taking that class and
You're seeing.
it's in there,
Yeah.
yeah.
that to me is always leads back to what community.
Mr. Chair, I went through my continuing education last week and that was discussed about Ask Kevin.
Great, that's good news. So I guess it's just gonna take some time. We'll get around to it, and it's not really a bad thing, because we're kind of learning with it too, and it's improving as we go, so it's a good thing to have a gradual growth. It's actually grown faster than we ever thought it would, but it's not a bad thing not to overwhelm it, you know, right off the bat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we purposefully launched very softly so
Yeah.
that we could work out a lot of the major kinks before going, you know, majorly public with it. But I think we're in the point now, we just started advertising on the homepage and we're gonna send out some email blasts and advertise it regularly. So,
The fact that we're not through January yet, and it is in continuing education, I expect that's probably a big part of it.
Yeah,
gonna really grow.
Future.
Yeah,
Probably, might be time to bump up that number if it's got maxed out twice or three times this week.
yeah.
It does cost money.
but guess how much money people answer phones and emails?
I was about to point that out.
No,
Yeah.
believe me, we've waited
Yeah,
every which way.
But it is a effective tool, and it is a way to get more information out without people. So don't be reluctant to spend a little money on it, because I think it's pretty well obvious it's paying off.
We did, we bumped it up quite a bit. Yeah, we're gonna see how that goes.
Okay. Anyway, I think it's a great tool. I'm as excited about it as I am anything we're doing at plumbing, and I'm excited about everything, so. Okay, Kevin, anything else on Kevin or?
Nope.
Okay. Lynn or Lisa, or I guess Lisa, let's talk just for information purposes about this Louisiana change in the Louisiana law, and Lynn, how it affects our reciprocity agreement. Lisa, if you'll tell us what.
You can kick it off.
Go ahead.
We just want to let y'all know that we had heard from the director of Louisiana Board, and they had created a regulation of paths to qualify journeyman candidates with 7,000 hours of on-the-job experience. If they had come out of the Department of Labor apprenticeship program. We appreciated that conversation with the executive director of Louisiana. It does not affect our reciprocity agreement. Our reciprocity agreement, will qualify potential journeymen under that agreement from Louisiana if they have 8,000 hours of on-the-job training and they've held that license for 2 years. And that tracks the authority we have to enter into a reciprocity agreement that we have in statute. So, what we simply did was change our form. And if a journeyman from Louisiana comes in and would like to reciprocate, we ask on the form, do you have 8,000 hours? And if they do, then they can move through the process. However, since they had to hold the license 2 years anyway, they most likely have it. The executive director also told us from Louisiana that they had no candidates waiting for this at this time, but it was something that was new and came in January. She just wanted to give us a heads up.
And board members, this is just for your information, because at some point, someone somewhere is gonna say, well, but Louisiana doesn't require but 7,000 hours, and you're reciprocating with them. And that's not the case, where ours is still 8,000 hours. And Lynn has looked at it and has determined that there's really no action on our part as far as the rule or the reciprocity agreement. The staff can just handle that internally.
Don't we increase our required number of hours if you have a Department of Labor approved apprentice program?
Our statute says you have to have 8,000 hours to be a journeyman.
Unless you're a Department of Labor approved apprentice
I think
program,
we
I
have
thought
a
it was
provision for
I thought it was 6 months less.
No.
Yeah, I thought there was, I don't have it in front of me, but I thought there was some.
At some point, there was a credit for a Department of Labor approved apprentice program.
The difference is that if you're gonna move up to a master plumber, normally
You
you
get a
hold the
shortcut
master
there.
plumber
Yeah.
for 4 years. In this case, if you're a Department of Labor, completed a Department of Labor program and came in under the 8,000 hours, then you only wait 1 year to become a master.
But there's no, my understanding too, there's no shortcut on adjournment, in Texas right now.
Yeah, there's a shortcut on the,
On the master.
yeah, there's
obtaining the
1,000 hours that can be requested for certain programs. Maybe that's what you're referring to,
And that's why we,
yeah, but they still have to have the hours. That's under the high school programs.
anything else on that subject? Okay. Item number 9. And it's discussion and education training requirement to obtain MedGas system Series 6000. We have, and this is a discussion item only, and I'm gonna be soliciting input from the industry and affected parties on this subject. We follow ASSE standards, with exception is we require to get a Texas MedGas 24 hours of training. ASSE has a 32-hour requirement. But there's nothing in our current rules that will prohibit getting 32 hours. Ours is a minimum standard. Ours is, the minimum required is 24 hours. That's not to say that someone can't take 32 hours. So there's nothing to prohibit them from doing that. One of the things that we have toyed around and discussed, and I just want to have a discussion, and I'm going to solicit input from the industry and the experts on this. Before we start messing with moving our minimum from 24 to 32, someone is going to have, I think we need to make the determination, how is the public going to be better served? And how is it going to benefit the plumber? Because it's an additional cost. And if 24 is doing it now, what do you teach in that one day that's not being taught in the 24? Is it more of the same, or is it new material that no one's seen before? Or is it just spreading out what you're doing in 24 hours? So one of the things that we have talked about, there has not been any rule change or proposal made yet. And before we do, I want to solicit some input from those CE providers that are actually teaching MedGas, and even from maybe the MedGas users or the master plumbers that are doing the contracting or trying to hire people. And also, I'm glad to see GW here. GW and Lisa and I had a hour-long discussion yesterday on the same subject. And GW's here as a resource in case any of us have got any questions. He's forgotten more than I ever knew. So anyway, we are gonna be soliciting, do we even want to address this issue of 24 versus 32 hours? Because it is gonna add some expense to plumbers. And if it's gonna add expense, what's it gonna do for the plumber and what's it gonna do for the public? Because that's the only two things that we need to be concerned about. The other area that we don't do that's required by ASSE is continuity testing. We don't currently do continuity testing. And there's a distinction between holding a MedGas endorsement and continuity testing, which demonstrates a person's ability to braze appropriately and correctly. As I understand it, ASSE requires a 6-month interval that you either have to have brazed using MedGas brazing within that 6 months. And if you've not, you've got to take a continuity test in order to do it. We currently, we test brazing when we do MedGas, but we don't do continuity testing in our program. Lisa and GW and I spoke yesterday. It's relatively easy for us to do continuity testing. We've got the facilities to do that and a mechanism in which to do it. it's difficult for me to talk about this because I don't know what I'm talking about. It always is. But I don't see the value of getting continuity testing unless you're doing med gas installations. Just to keep it for the sake of keeping it, I'm not sure what that does for you. Now, if I'm regularly and reoccurrently getting med gas jobs and I'm working in med gas, then absolutely. You've got to either demonstrate or that you've been doing it efficiently or you've been in and been tested. But you can hold a med gas endorsement without having a continuity test. Because med gas endorsement covers a lot of information other than just brazing. So what we kind of kicked around among the three of us, and I want to open it up for your input here. Maybe we should start doing continuity testing for those that need it. If I hold a med gas endorsement for 3 years, you renew it every 3 years, you gotta have is it 3 hours CE? 2 hours in 3 years, 2 hours in 3 years. And let's say that maybe I hold a med gas endorsement and there's a contract coming up for a med gas job. Maybe we should make available continuity testing on request. And when we do that continuity testing, if they pass it, maybe when you go to that plumber's license, we need to indicate on their account, med gas continuity testing approved as a benefit. So this whole discussion is to kind of lead you that Lisa, will be soliciting input from the interested parties on what, if anything, we should do to our med gas program to enhance for the plumber or to protect the public that we're not currently doing. We believe that the 24-hour minimum in our current program is ASSE certified. And that determination has been made a long time ago. But what, if anything, do we need to do with our Texas program going forward? I don't want to just do it for the sake of doing it unless we know what we're going to get for it. If that makes any sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So,
Question, are we even authorized by statute to do the continuity testing if it's not a required thing, if it's a voluntary item?
well, I think that we are. I don't think that we need authorization. Do you think?
I don't think we have a
It's part of our exam.
limitation to
Okay,
that. The real question is exactly what Frank said, is if we were to contemplate that, it would raise costs on our regulated party, and that's what we really need
Yeah.
to determine.
yeah,
But
I
on
mean,
the continuity
obviously,
test, only if they need it.
yeah, and obviously we couldn't do that for free. So yeah, that would raise
It'd be a
costs, I
fee
guess.
for it.
Where do ASSE certified med gas installers go now when they need to do the continuity testing?
To a third party, I suppose. Go ahead. You know, I'm gonna, in this particular discussion,
I guess where I'm headed with this is, are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist?
that's exactly my question.
Okay.
Did you have a comment you want to make? And please identify yourself and,
Okay, so Chad Wynn, ICC Win CE. I'm med-gas certified. I'm also 6010 ASSE certified. The brazing continuity for ASSE 6010 especially just involves paperwork. There's no physical. And then that renews your brazing certification, which also keeps your 6010 compliant. So there's no actual testing. You're just attesting to the fact that you have done.
what if you've not done any brazing for 2 years?
The key is you need to do brazing.
Well, what if you haven't? I've got a med gas endorsement, but I hadn't done brazing in a year on a med gas job. Should we not, as an agency, provide some type of test that will certify that, yes, you are qualified to do brazing? Just like you were when you passed your med gas exam, and show that on their website so that they can bid on those jobs?
I hear what you're saying.
I mean, that's my question. Is that a service that we should provide for our plumbers. Because I can tell you that most. You haven't raised 6 months. And I want to ask you this question, or the group this question. If we're building a hospital or a medical clinic or whatever that's gonna require medical gas piping, they're not about to let somebody in there that's not certified to braze med gas. And I guess that's what I'm doing, is trying to open it up to those who may have held a med gas endorsement for a year, but have never done any brazing. They've got to be certified that they can braze appropriately. So why would we not provide that service as an agency? Johnny?
I'm Johnny
Identify
Curtin.
yourself, please.
I'm Johnny Curtin with Johnny Curtin Plumbing Education. What I've seen of it is most of the companies that hire people that way make them braze and check it before they put them on the job. The company takes care of that themselves.
I'm not sure they're authorized to certify you as qualified to braze though.
They're not authorized to certify you, but
And I agree with you. They're not
like
allowed.
he says, all you have to do is attest that you have done that, and they check it, and they're satisfied that you can braze.
Chad, if I could ask a question, on the ASCE form, does it, do you attest that you did it on the job, or do you attest that you raised? In an environment?
Just braze.
Even in your own shop?
Yes.
Yeah,
You don't
you can
specify.
go out in your own shop.
Is that right?
Braze and say I did it.
That's where I was coming from.
Okay.
That, because it doesn't necessarily have to be necessarily on a job site, it can be in a shop environment.
Certainly a perishable skill. I mean, you need to be doing it if you're gonna be doing it. It's.
And the more you practice, the more you do it, the better you get. I'm assuming, like everything else.
Another thing to consider, considering all this, is how many of your masters are not in the field brazing any longer, but yet.
But, you know, the way he's talking about it, it's more like a welding certification. You know, if you're the master plumber on that job, are you actually brazing? Do you need that welding certification, that brazing cert? Whereas the guys who are actually hands-on in the field, some of these engineers are requiring them to produce their certification on brazing.
And our level of having to have med gas is the master has to have the med gas.
Correct.
In order to hire a journeyman to be qualified to make his med gas.
Correct.
So it's.
And they do have to come in and braze to get that endorsement on
Yes,
that
sir.
master license.
Exactly.
Frank, you should.
And I've got my med gas as well.
When was the last time you brazed?
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing that
Are you
up.
suggesting an endorsement, like level certification?
Well, that or, you know, to say, if we're going out for ASSE, it's not necessarily that ASSE is saying that we're gonna be doing it on a job. It's saying that we can do it in a shop environment to attest. I mean, attesting to it is one thing, proving that you're doing it
Keep the skills sharp.
in the trade is two totally different things.
Right.
And the other side of it is if you're out on the job site, you need to be, you've gotta be proven through knowledge and experience that you know how to do something. If we find you and you haven't, recertified or that sort of thing, that's a problem.
At any rate, it's kind of a complicated subject. And before we start making rule changes or before we take any action, I'd like to hear from the experts of what their view is. Some may write back and say, just leave it alone, just like it is, that we're doing just fine. Or some say, yes, you need to start provide continuity testing and the ability for somebody to come in and get a continuity test and put it on their website and put it on your website so we can do it. Yes, sir. If you will, identify yourself.
I'm Adam Smith. I too am master med gas, and I haven't brazed since the last time I taught a med class was about 1.5 years ago. I think that this might be a good opportunity for the union halls and the CE providers, that if there's a need for you to come and braze in front of somebody and have them, you know, pull that thing apart and make sure that you know what you're doing and sign off on it, that seems like a perfect opportunity for those folks to provide that. I think it would be wonderful if the board did that, but I don't think it's necessarily filling a need. I think there's other opportunities to take care of that. Back when I was teaching all the time, I was brazing about every 2 weeks. So it didn't matter. My skills were sharp and fresh because I was doing it all the time. But like you said, it's just an attestation on a form. It's not, you're not turning it into anybody, you're not asking them to pull it apart or look at it. So it's kind of that, it's being honest, right? You're having to be honest. I think if there's a need for us to be certifying folks, I think there's plenty of people in the industry that can provide it.
You know, the only thing that the state brings is, not that everyone else is not credible, but it does bring
Absolutely.
a standard and credibility.
It,
when you get
it holds weight.
It does hold weight.
Yes, sir.
Not that Joe's Medgas Plumbing Company might be as good or better than we are, but people are more likely to recognize the state of Texas than they are an individual organization or group. So is it something we want to get into? Would it help the industry? Would it protect the public more? If yes, we're going to craft an email from Lisa, or Lisa's going to, and send it out to our CE providers, to all interested parties, IATMO, ASSE, anyone who's interested, maybe even the master plumbers who are bidding on these jobs, and try to put it in succinct and direct questions as we possibly can to solicit input. Because we don't want to start making rules just for the sake of making rules. We've got to know, what is it gonna do for the consumer, or what's it gonna do for the plumber before we start messing with it. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Mr.
not that
Moderator, if you
hard
will,
here.
identify yourself and.
Yeah. John Mata, Senior Director of Field Service for IATMO. As far as that goes with the 32 hours that were discussed, I did find out for the most part, most of the providers around the state, that's exactly what they're utilizing, the minimum of 32 hours. So they're in line with the ASSE standard. Also, I'd like to say that if we have a Texas Plumbing Stakeholders Group that we have, and it tells you know, the unions, the PHCC, it uses the ASSE, and there's a group of us that pretty much make up about 2/3 of the industry in the state of Texas, and we'd be glad to help y'all with and a lot of them are the executive directors of these groups that have the contractors under them, and they're the ones who are bidding on this. So if you like, we can help y'all out with that, disseminating that if you can get that.
Well, certainly you would be one of the ones that will be asking for comment from.
Yes, sir.
So, and either you can do it individually or you can do it collectively as a
Okay.
group, however you
Okay.
choose to do it. But I just, the whole purpose of this exercise and putting it on I don't want us to start down a path that we're not actually accomplishing something positive and just passing a rule just to pass a rule, just because, and there's nothing in our rules currently that does prohibit somebody from getting a 32-hour program, but also we'll give you a Texas Medgas for 24. Because no one yet has told me what that extra 8 hours does that you don't get in the 24.
Well, the 32 hours is what the minimum is for the ASSE 6000 series.
I understand, but what's in that extra
Yeah,
8 hours?
well, and I found out that a lot of them are going 40 hours because they have to do the practical for it. They have to burn their coupon. And when they do that, they have to make sure they have 100% retention, just like we do right here at the board.
Sure.
And if they do not make it on their first pass, well, then, as you know,
Back to
right,
the
there's more. You gotta go and redo it again. You just don't burn them in 10 minutes, you know, this takes some time to get it going. So that's what they use the extra 8 hours. Some of them even go further. It just depends on how many they have in a class. If you have 10 students in a class, and let's say 6 of them pass on their first time, the other 4 bus, you're already going to exceed some of the allotted time that you have there. So that is the practical portion of it that you got, that they go
If the
beyond.
students who pass, do they have to still hang around?
No, they pass it on the first one. Then
They're
they come,
24,
yeah,
they're out of.
Yeah.
32, they're out.
yeah, they're out of there. But, you know, unfortunately, you can't, that's the unknown. You can't tell who's gonna pass and who's not, you know?
Mr. Wynn, you had something else to?
I do know that the ASSE class hours include covering ASSE curriculum, where Texas Medgas endorsement does not. So that's a
Okay,
big difference between the class.
so it expands a little bit about things other than just,
Than NFPA 99.
Yeah. okay. Anyway, that's the type of information that we're gonna be seeking in written form from the various, groups. And does the board feel, Ron and all of you, do you feel this is an appropriate way to go before we start changing rules requiring a minimum of 32 continuity testing? Does this make sense to the board
Yes, we should make sure that it's a need before we
jump off?
yeah.
Yes,
With that.
Ron, are you on board with that?
yes.
Okay, well, I'm seeing some nods in the audience and the board seems to agree. So before we start jumping off into rules, expanding the requirements for med gas endorsements or continuity testing or additional hours, let's get some feedback from the industry and see if there's actually a need there. And if the need is there, is the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners the one that need to fill it? So in the next 30, 60 days, we're in no rush to do this. We've been operating under this system since I got here, and it's worked just fine, it seems to. But we always want to make it better, and we want to protect the public more in a comprehensive manner, and want to make it better for plumbers. So, that's the intent of doing it. So, Lisa, that letter will be going out in the next 30 to 60 days, and when we get those responses back, I would anticipate we'll have another board meeting, we'll have another discussion about it, some of the responses we get. And if appropriate, then we'll do some rule changes to enhance it, so. Okay, thank you for your input from the industry also, and I look forward to your written comments also. It's about 10 after 11. Let's take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and pick up on our agenda with executive director.
Okay, take care.
So it's about 8 minutes
Last year, more.
It's 11:20, call the meeting back to order. Before we leave, item number 9 having to do with MedGas, there are something I want to clarify, and Lisa, listen to me to make sure I'm saying this correctly. Because there seems to be a little bit of misunderstanding in talking to some people in preparation for this meeting. If a person, an individual, is ASSE certified by another group or organization, and they're from out of state, North Carolina, Washington, wherever, they come to Texas, but they have that ASSE certification, they are not required to take our Texas MedGas course. They are required to take either a journeyman or a master exam to become a master exam. But the whole purpose of our recognizing that was to eliminate the requirement of them being ASSE certified and then coming to Texas and having to take another test. Did I state that correctly?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay. So if there's no misunderstanding, because I did run into someone in preparation of this said that, well, we still got to take the Texas test. And no, you actually don't. That's exactly what we did when we passed that back in July, is we eliminated the necessity for that.
It's a national standard.
But do not misunderstand, for instance, in Louisiana, you don't have to be a plumber to do MedGas. I think the same is true in Florida. You don't have to be a plumber to do MedGas. But in Texas, you have got to hold a journeyman or a master plumber license in order to do MedGas in Texas, period. So if you can't pass a journeyman or a master test in Texas, I don't care what endorsement you hold and who certified it, you're not gonna do MedGas in Texas, so.
And so,
Yes, ma'am.
and soon we've got, I think I've got 7 or 8 people that have came forward that wanted to get their endorsement that way. And, we had a little snag in our application process to get to make the system understand that that could be waived. But very soon, as soon as this week, you may start seeing some of those on the website. And it'll be denoted down at the bottom in their training. They will have had, basically 2 types of training in a lot of cases, but it's gonna say that they have the ASSE training somewhere. And it'll say other beside it down at the bottom, so.
That's good. So, anyway, just so there's no misunderstanding about that, there seems to be still some, but. Okay, the other thing I want to do before we move on to Lisa's report, during this morning's session, Milton Gutierrez sent a text that he got unexpectedly called to do some duty having to do with the National Guard, which made him not able to be here today. So is there a motion to approve the absence of Milton Gutierrez?
I so move.
Move by Mr. McDonald, second.
Second.
Second by Tommy Rice. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, Lisa,
Thank you, sir.
take it away.
Well, Lisa Hill, Executive Director of the Plumbing Board. I've got a great team. I want to give some kudos out and Charlotte and Kevin and all the work that everybody's been doing on the town halls and everything else. But it's been crazy busy. In addition to that, our previous Kenneth Biddle, our previous finance person, moved over to the Veterans Commission, so we've been without a finance person for a bit. And so we're wearing that hat too. So it's been a little bit busy, but we've got Dan Kircher, who has elected to come help us out, and he came from a temp organization that we were able to work with, but happened to have some perfect skills. And so recently we've thrown him in this week and said, here's a pile of stuff, sort through. And he's done a great job. I think he's worked every minute, every hour he's walked in the door. So we're glad to have Dan, and feel free to say hi to Dan. And we're gonna go over a couple little things that have to do with finance and what I do, and so I may have to defer to Dan some. So we'll put some more fire on him in a bit. So glad to have you around, Dan, I tell you, made all the difference in the world. I was, December and January was kind of rough. We also have another new staff member who is, Hudson Holmes. If you didn't meet Hudson, he's on the phone right now. We got him to put him on the phone, and that's where he's at right now, so I'm not gonna pull him back off and bring him out. But he's working the secondary reception phone up front, which he may build up into our customer service liaison up there, we'll see. And I've got 3 new people coming, tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So you'll start seeing some more new faces, and, we'll get some more of these spots filled. We've got some of our phones fixed so that we can put people on those phones, and so we're pretty excited. That was the biggest day we had. Dawn and I were like, oh, the phones are working, so. It's those little things that count for us.
It's pretty bad when you get excited about a phone working.
Yes, it
I'm gonna have to tell you.
It is. And, I also want to say that we do still have a current opening for an examiner. Haven't had, a lot of takers, but share the word during continuing education. The posting's out on our website, it's out on Workforce Commission. We'd certainly, be interested in talking to an individual that might fit that spot. And the other, let's see, yeah, we got those 3 new people. I want to make sure to talk about that. Fingerprints, boy, I tell you what, everybody's doing a good job of telling everyone that they need fingerprints. I think they must drill that in their head in continuing education. Because they've been coming in larger batches than ever before. So we're doing our best with 3 people. And one of those people is technically half licensing, the other one is half exam, and so we're pulling them in and doing multiple jobs and trying to stay on top of the fingerprints. But I'm still really confident. The last week I ran it, we were right about a little over 57. I ran it again yesterday because we put one person at home doing nothing but clearing what we call a no-hit on them, trying to get some of the new apprentices and the renewals moved through. So I expect probably whenever I run it again, we're gonna be at about 59%, so we'll get in there.
That's pretty good.
I mean, it's,
Keep in mind, that's individually looking at almost 60,000,
yeah, and that is,
40,000
that is,
individuals.
and the month, and remember too, the month of December and January, we no longer have the full blast of inspectors that come in January, but we don't have regular renewals in December. But we got a huge onslaught of fingerprints, and so that worked out pretty good that we were able to focus on getting a lot of those done in December. But with December and January, just the amazing applicants. You're gaining on our existing population, and then here's this flood coming in right behind you, and you're thinking, I'm never gonna, get to the top of the mountain or outrun the flood, but, we're getting there, so. And the more people that we get that have no convictions, the faster it is, so. That's part of it.
I did notice when we get to Steve's report, we did catch a few in the net on renewals.
Yes,
on
we did.
fingerprint.
Couple of pretty serious things.
Yeah.
And, Steve will probably be able to tell more about them, but a couple of revocations, things like that. So.
It also, Lisa pointed out to me yesterday, and I guess you'll get to it, but it's affecting the numbers of renewals big time, these fingerprint business. People who either have submitted their renewal and didn't have their fingerprint yet, didn't get renewed, so our numbers have really dropped off. You'll notice when you get there in that spike, that's people that sent in a renewal and didn't have fingerprints yet, so. Kevin, I forget, you told the town hall group, how many communications have you sent out saying that fingerprints are required?
I think it was 400,000.
400,000 notifications to 75,000 people. that you got to have fingerprints, and we still have them trying to renew without fingerprints.
And we're also able to track who we sent them to individually through the class and how many times we've told you, hint, hint. So I'm sorry you got a job that needs to be done, but we've got it right here.
What are you trying to say, Lisa?
It's a hint, okay?
I'll tell you, it's pretty discouraging, and I tell you, it does affect our numbers, and when you get to the numbers, it's gonna show, man, that we're tanking out. And that's a direct result of people sending in renewals with no fingerprints, and they don't get renewed, so therefore they drop off the rolls. So, CE providers, please, please, please help us. In addition to the 400,000 notifications we've sent out, please tell them again. They gotta get their fingerprints. And I am telling you, it is so easy to get your fingerprints. It's just ridiculous how easy it is to get your fingerprints. You can get it at any identical location that are located. There are 6 or 8 here in Austin that you can get them. And I'm told you just walk right in, you can make an appointment, or you can, I think it's best to make an appointment. You'll be in and out of there in 5 minutes. It doesn't take but a second, so.
And the other thing, as a reminder, if you've got well-worn fingers, make sure you watch your email in the event that you get notice that your prints would not process. Because you're actually gonna get the notice that they didn't process a little bit before we get the notice that there's an error in your file. And what we get is an error, and you get an email that says, hey, come on back, you don't have to pay again, but we need to roll your fingers on there again. Drink a bunch of water before you go, you know, if they're mature, experienced fingertips. So.
And Lisa, what is the process if a person goes back a second time and they still the prints don't, what's the process?
They'll get a second email. They have to go at least twice. And then we get an error report, and we see that they've been twice on our error report. And when we see somebody's got those 2 errors, we're in most cases confident that that's what it is, that they had well-worn fingerprints. And so at that point, when we see those 2 pop up, we have to send it over to the FBI to get it cleared. Because TPS is not gonna do it on their own. It has to go to both places. And then once we get that confirmation back, which takes about a week, few days, then we go ahead and clear them. But a lot of times we don't know this is happening. You already know it's happening before we know it's on that. Those error batches, that's not the first ones we're gonna do. So you've got somebody in that.
And it can happen. Let me tell you, us old guys don't have fingerprints like young people do. I'm looking at my fingers, I don't even see any fingerprints I've got. I mean, the older you get, your fingerprints you don't have them like you used to have them, so.
Well, we call them well-worn and experienced fingertips.
Yeah, mine don't wear out.
I call it a bunch of old dudes as well.
Work with your hands, it's gonna happen eventually.
Well, also, Lisa, while we're on fingerprints, it's a problem, and we heard this at town halls of apprentices. Send them in to get their fingerprints really fast. Because as hard as the staff is working, it takes a little time to go through. If you have no criminal history or no hits on it, you come in a batch of 500 or 1,000 people, and those are just passed right through. And they're gonna go relatively quickly. But if you've got misdemeanors or felonies, whether it be apprentice, a master, or an RMP, they come in a separate set, and those have to individually be looked at by Steve and his group. So it takes a little bit longer if you've got a criminal history. So the quicker you can get those apprentices or journeymen or tradesmen in to get those fingerprints, the quicker they're gonna get their license back or their renewal.
And once you've done your fingerprints, if you're in an unfortunate circumstance to have received an additional conviction of some sort between when you got your fingerprints and when you get your next renewal, tell us ahead of time. Because we're gonna get a notice for it and it's gonna hold you up, and that part works automatically. So tell us ahead of time, and so that we can get get it set up to clear. Hopefully you don't get any, but you never know.
And then we hear it at the town hall, people are mad about having to get their fingerprints. But if nobody's picking on the plumbers, everybody, all occupational licenses in Texas have gotta have them done by 25. And thanks to Lisa getting an early start on this before we even got here on the board, we're gonna make it just fine, because we're almost 60% there. We got a full year to go, so we're gonna make it just fine. But it is causing a little, it seems like everything causes a little bit of a slowdown, but this ain't on us. If people get their fingerprints timely, it would move a lot quicker and we wouldn't see that fluctuation in licenses. Sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
That's okay. And one of the other things I wanted to mention on the Versa updates, in addition to the fact that I mentioned a while ago, you're gonna start seeing the ASSE on the endorsement for those that come with it. You're also gonna see a change in the inspectors, and you should see that this next month. Inspectors that are third-party inspectors will start appearing as and show that they're a third-party inspector. And then you'll see the full list of all the different places that they are affiliated with. In other words, they're gonna be employed up here by this person. I'm not picking on anybody, Burgess or ABC Inspection Company or whatever it is. They're gonna be employed by that person, and then you're gonna have all the cities that they go to, but it's gonna tell you that they're a third party, and so that's coming. We tested it yesterday, and so we're kind of excited about that. I think it'll help, and what it's gonna prevent is the inspector continues to have to chase their license around to the different cities. And we can't give it to them at home. It's not designed to be a privatized personal thing, but, it'll prevent it going to a PO box to a city that they only do one inspection in a year. And when they might do 20 dozen in another one, so. We're trying it because it causes phone calls, it causes remailing them, it causes people not to know whether they're familiar with a particular city or not, and we believe we found a way to fix that. So we're excited about that too. We'll see. Current statistics on plumbers, and on licenses and registrants. And just to say, inspectors, we're at 1715. That's the most inspectors that we have ever had since I have been here, and I've been here a long time.
2 years ago when I got here, we had less than 1,000.
Yeah, and a lot of them had not renewed, and then that was that, the cities had dropped so many off, and now the cities are bringing some back on. And we've got cities just begging us, they wanna get their people in here, so. There's a lot of building going on. But that's the most we've ever had. I can't even, and I know that for a fact. Master plumbers, 12,213. Journeyman, 23,602. You've got 3,189 tradesmen right now. That's quite a bit of tradesmen. And those are constantly moving up into the journeyman once they get those, enough hours as well. And just out of curiosity, since we talked about, med gas, we're pushing around 4,000 or so, med gas when we put the masters and the journeyman together. We had about 7 and 8. Actually, I don't think that's 4,000. I think that number's wrong. There should be about 3,400. I need to rerun that one. But it never stops. It continues to go and go and go, so. And you'll see too, in one of your charts that I put in there, and Mr. Denton referred to it just a little bit, there's always that drop off, that plunge in December because there isn't a renewal. And in addition to that, you're gonna see some revenue drop, which I'll defer to Dan here in just a minute. And that chart's in there as well on the revenue drop. but in addition to fingerprints holding them up and this onslaught coming at us, December's been a pretty tough month, so. But, and I also wanted to tell you about, we've almost got one of our other new reports done for the pending examinations. And on pending examinations right now, we've got, 200, and this was as of yesterday evening. There's 200 people that are scheduled right now to take the written. And that's not counting the ones that are in the queue that are getting processed, and every minute that's changing. And there's another one getting pushed over to get their email to go to Pearson to take that written. And then, if you'll recall, we started our new self-scheduling, to where they can self-schedule the practical. That's the best thing that we ever did. I mean, I'm gonna tell you what, Dawn and I thought we were gonna pull our hair out just building that stuff and trying to communicate to the software people how we needed it to work and all these different tests to do it. But we had to stop everything and get that in place because we couldn't handle it. We can't just take 2 people and throw them doing nothing but that. And so you've got 256 as of last night that have actually gone out and self-scheduled their practical using the Pearson View software and using that Pearson View account. So anyone that has taken a written examination and say that they haven't heard when their practical is, it's because they haven't looked at their email. And the emails, what I'm seeing, and Kevin, remind me, you and I are gonna talk about this on one of our landing page things. The email to set up your written exam and the email to set up your practical look very similar. But one says written, one says practical. And so some of them are getting confused thinking it's the same or a duplicate email, and it's not. You're just gonna use your same account and go in there and choose Waco or Austin for your practical. And you can do that 10 days out. And the other thing that we're starting to see, these are scheduled out, the people that have chosen to schedule out, and it could be because of spring break or whatever the vacation season is that, we've got them scheduled out into March right now. But there's plenty of gaps in there. And of course, Monday and Friday is the most popular day to come to Austin. And so there's room in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So have a longer weekend. Is all I can say. There's 256 of them that have gone out and set up their schedule as of last night.
I agree with Lisa that also addresses phone calls and emails. Think about those 256 people calling, rescheduling, reconfirming either by email or calling back and forth, trying to reach somebody. I totally agree with Lisa. That's probably one of the most innovative and best things that ever happened to the agency was this self-scheduling. And the thing that's really, really, really exciting to me, GW said he's still got openings in February, taking practical exams. So when you hear these people on 71K and at your CE meetings saying, well, I put mine in 6 months ago and I ain't heard nothing. Encourage them to go to their account and see what they have not done correctly. Because the chance is they haven't gotten their fingerprints, they hadn't paid their fee, they don't have their CE completed. There's something there that's making them having to wait, and it ain't us. But we've got spots available in February to take practical exams. They're scheduled all the way into March. But there's openings in February to take it. And I asked Lisa yesterday, so I said, Lisa, tell me what I should tell a person. How long does it take me to get my practical? And she said, 10 days.
Pass your exam, pass your written last week. Once the grade goes through, you're gonna get an email, go schedule yourself. And I'm gonna say this too, and you can share this and continue in, but share it publicly or whoever else is listening. If you passed your written, give it a give it a week, 5 days, whatever. Even if you haven't gotten your email, you've already set up your Pearson account because you previously scheduled and went and took your written. Go ahead and log back into your Pearson account and see if it doesn't go ahead and offer you the chance to select the practical exam. A lot of times that it'll be already sitting out there in your account before all the emails even get read. So,
You know, and with that being said, there are some who submitted paper requests a long time ago. And I think we're still trying to work through those things, but for the most part, I think you've taken a big chunk out of that. So I would have to say there's a 95% chance that if you're haven't had an opportunity to schedule your practical, it's on you, it's not on us. I'm not saying it's impossible, but there's a 90 or 95% chance it's something that you have not done in order to get. And you know what, the wonderful thing about it, it hadn't been a year ago that we were sitting here talking about having several hundred people waiting 4 or 5 months to take a practical exam. Just look at what the staff has done in a year's time. I couldn't be prouder of all, and it's all through these innovative approaches to self-scheduling and Pearson View and the use of technology is just, I just couldn't be prouder of what the staff has done in a short period of time. Well, we're not perfect and we're not there where we want to be, but man, we are just light years ahead of the world. And it's sometimes discouraging when we hear complaints and gripes and, you know, at these town halls, it's okay. But because everyone hasn't lived this the way the people in this room have lived it over the last 12 or 18 months. Anyway, go forward, Lisa.
and well, and it is, it's been a big step just getting that, and I'm gonna tell you, if your exam is not in your Pearson View account, or if you took your written a very long time ago, then send me a text to that phone number that Kevin put out there and ask Kevin, wherever you put it. But you've gotta tell me what your name and license number is in that text. And we'll look and see why you didn't get pushed through somewhere. But most of them are working pretty good, so. But we had to stop everything else and make that happen, and I'm sorry that you don't have the inspector and the med gas and, or the inspector and the fire and all that other stuff, but this had to be done. So it worked out pretty good. One of the other things I wanted to say is the pass-fail rate continues to, let me flip back over here to my larger font. Believe it or not. We gave a lot of exams this last year, and that's Pearson, that's us, that's everything all combined. And I'm gonna tell you, we're close to on target. We'll probably do that, if not maybe a little bit more. The first 3 months of 24, we were not fully staffed by any means. That's whenever we lost 2 examiners, started training another one, but we're up and running, and if I could be so lucky to get one more, I'm real right now. But last year, if you look at the totals that we did 2265 total exams. We've already done 2,000, and that's with a small staff that I can't continue beating them to death. GW's gonna fall over one of these days, and so I gotta get him a little bit of a break, but it's coming together.
Just as a comparison, we put this out about a month ago. Kevin put a release out. In fiscal year 2022, we administered 4,963 examinations with a 70% pass rate. In fiscal year 2023, which ended August 31st, our number was 9,616 examinations with a 72.3% pass rate. So that's progress in my book. That's progress in that book.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
totals-
Lisa and staff,
Totals right now, we're a little over 2,000.
just this year.
And this
That's
time
half
last
of
year.
what we
we've
used
done
to
a
do
little
in
bit
a
more.
whole year.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we usually, we've always ran somewhere around 4,000 to 4,500, something like that. On a good year, a little more than that, but, so it's gonna come together. And, one other thing I forgot to mention, we were talking a little bit about, examinations and reciprocity. We also recently had a new conversation, we're just barely scratching the surface of it, it's North Dakota. North Dakota, Ollie was gonna communicate back to them. So we got a little communication with North Dakota, they're interested in doing some reciprocity, so maybe I'll have more on that. Once we get up and, a little bit more information on that.
You know, Lisa, just before you get off examinations, and it's consistent with last year, but one of the lowest pass rates we have is for the master exam,
We're about to talk about.
58%.
We've
Which
had-
I'm not complaining about it, it is what it is, you either pass it or you don't pass it.
Well, I mean, that standard should be a little more rigorous. It's like
It is.
this level.
Yeah, absolutely, it's the top of the food chain, so it should be a tough test.
And one of the things that we're gonna do before we go live with the master exam on computer-based testing, which I'm gonna tell you, at the latest, it'll be the end of March, but we're shooting for, somewhere around the 22nd as an actual go live date. We've got to deal with a couple of data freezes between, HPC and Pearson. They have things that they do and things that we wanted to do. And, but we may put a small batch in just to see how they do. We'll see, mid-February. But what we've determined we're gonna go ahead and do, and I'm gonna say this date, and this is the date. There is no other date. February 16th. If you're a one-part master exam, and those statistics are because a lot of times they failed that written, which really concerns me. Believe it or not, they're getting the charts and they're getting the drawing on the structure, but we're having failures on the master written. Because so many people just want the master license, but we're getting failures on the written. And, we're gonna invite all of the people that have one part. And I don't know if I can fit them all. I'm gonna do some in Waco and some here on, February 16th. There again, if you are someone that only needs one part of that master exam, send a text and one of us will get back to you, but I need your name and your license number. And don't try to fool me and say that you've already taken one part and you only need one part, because I know what part you need when I look you up. And I would really like to, I ran a list, I got a list sitting here. And we'd like to clean up as many of those as we can, because I have real concerns. Dawn thinks it's gonna crash the system when we send all those files over, so. We're gonna attempt with the oldest ones that are pending, to do, push over of the files at the end of February and test those, and then a huge giant batch to go live by the end of March, so.
Lisa, and am I correct that this coming in, taking a partial of the master ends when computer-based testing starts? So the next time that you fail a portion of the master exam under computer-based, you're gonna have to come in and take the whole thing again. You can't take just a portion of it. So what you're cleaning up is the end of that, because that won't ever happen again once we go live on the computer-based test, right?
Yeah, and right now, the only day that we can squeeze people in to do this cleanup is the 16th of February. We try to find maybe one more day, And I may have one more day, I just don't know where it's gonna be. And this is actually a maintenance day that we had set aside because we were gonna do maintenance and clean up and cut pipe and breathe. And, we decided that we're gonna put these people in here.
How many are you looking at? Guess at it, just an estimate.
I'm gonna say about 75.
You're gonna divide them between the two
Yeah.
locations.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think, I think I'm gonna have to do one other day. I just gotta find that spot, but a big bunch of them, I've already got quite a few set up for February 16th. We'll see how many are ready to do it. And I got a couple people that said, you know what, I'm gonna wait and just retake the whole thing so I can take a prep class and they can pick their own date at the end, and they're not in any big hurry. It's just something they wanna achieve in their career. But unfortunately, I have a few people that went out and decided to take some contracts on some jobs, and now they're going, oh my gosh, I screwed up. So,
I gotta get that master.
I gotta get it. And, which is not our fault, but, you know, we want everybody to be legal. We're trying to get you to where where you need to be.
You know, Jason made a comment a while ago, and I think he's 100% correct. We shouldn't be concerned with the 58% pass rate on a master exam. Because it is the most difficult, and it is the top of the food chain, and there's nothing else after that. So you should be pretty proficient in all areas, or you shouldn't pass it. So that's a big deal to get a master license. So I don't think we have any reason for concern, Jason.
So I know we haven't been processing master exam applications in a while. We'll be resuming that with some certainty.
We've been processing them.
Okay,
Do not have them out on the website for them to do. We put them back out there, but it became a mess. And so because we've had to deal with the fee changes, we went ahead and took the fee back off of it. And, you can come by and do a paper one, or you can call us on this phone and we'll open you one up and put you in line for the computer based. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pay your fee at Pearson when you select your day. So,
okay.
don't open anything, don't try to open anything, don't open an out-of-state master or anything like that in your account. Either stick one in the mail or just call us and we'll open the application.
Okay.
But you've gotta be eligible, you've gotta have photo ID. We still have your birth certificate if you took your exam in the last 6 years, you're good to go. It's a real simple process.
Okay, good.
In our next board meeting, we should be able to tell you how it's working. Because and don't forget, when we went from computer-based testing on tradesmen, we did 1,200 tradesmen in 60 days. So the same shrinkage is gonna occur in these masters that are
Yeah.
sometimes patiently waiting, but.
Well,
that
and sometimes
shrinkage is gonna happen.
impatiently waiting, and that's been my primary concern, is because we've been kind of stringing these guys along.
I agree.
I completely agree. We made a decision, be it right or wrong, to stop working on the master and get the self-scheduling up. And it's a toss-up which one's gonna be better, but I know whenever we get the master up, we're really gonna feel good.
It's gonna shrink fast, and,
Yeah,
you know, all I can say is I'm sorry that they were delayed, but.
yeah, I mean,
It's on me.
I know, and
I
it's
can
just,
only work so
you know,
many
I feel
hours.
bad, especially if they're working for a company, a lot of times that new card comes with a new pay rate too, so. You know, I feel bad that we've strung some of these guys along as long as we have.
But that's why it's so important from the tradesman to the journeyman, because those definitely, they're like, oh, I'm gonna get this because I want to get that pay rate.
Mhm.
I tell everybody, if Jason had been in the last board meeting, we would already have this done.
Well,
That's the meetings that you
I'll
don't
carry
go
it,
to.
Yeah.
all the
I'll
time.
carry it then. But we're excited. We got a lot of stuff going. And I did want to say, I wanted to talk a little bit about our expenses, and I'm gonna defer that back to Dan, just about where we're at on what we spent, because we had to go ahead and, because we're anticipating so many more exams that we're gonna be doing. And bear in mind, we're doing more exams in Waco now that we have 2 staff members there. We were shuffling staff back and forth, and so we've had to go ahead and spend some additional funds. And I'm just gonna give you a little short breakdown from Dan on where we're at on those funds. Go ahead, Dan, if you wanna throw anything in there. Yeah, just go ahead and do the basic report to them on that. We're still good, but
They will have a copy of the quarterly financial report? Okay. Yeah, my name is Dan Cruiser. I'm the interim finance person. And I'll be presenting the finance update for the first quarter of fiscal year 2024. On the first page of the finance report has the statement of activities for the 3 months ending November 30th, 2023. And it's pretty much both tables are the same information. They're just presented in different formats. The first table is by appropriation and the second is by accounting category. And again, they show the same information, just categorized differently. So if we start with the first table, the columns are, or the first column has a description of each appropriation, for the agency. And then the next column over, the original appropriation column, it lists the amount appropriated by the state legislature for each of our categories. And then the total appropriations for fiscal year 2024 is 3.9 million, which is an increase of around $1 million from the previous year, which was around 2.9 million. So we got an increase of just under $1 million. So I think that's good. The next column is our transfers in and out. And that's just some small adjustments to our original appropriations. And the column next to that is our expenditures for the 3 months ending November 30th. And our total expenditures for the quarter was 984,000, which is rated around 25% of our appropriations. So I think we're, on track for that line. Yeah, so I think we're in good shape there. The next 2 columns is a projection to the end of the year for the next 3 quarters, and we're projecting 100%. I think this was early in the fiscal year, so we're just projecting we're going to spend all of our appropriation. And then the final column is just our appropriation balance. So that's the original minus actual. Way to look over the rest of the year. Are there any questions so far?
and we've got another caller in here too that we've got to get.
I saw that. That's the 48,000.
That 48 is for the next year. We're gonna get that, we're gonna have to replace the expedition, which is what we pull our trailer and all that stuff with. Right now, we've got 1 car on order, which was from last year, that we cannot get. I mean, we lowered ourselves to a Ford Edge, nothing against Ford Edge, but I'm saying it barely fits my people, okay? Because that's what they said they were gonna have, and now we're being told that that they haven't built that car. So we're struggling again. And so now, then we have another 34,000 somewhere. And that's the one that we're gonna go ahead and purchase this year and encumber the money on it, even though we've got that money encumbered sitting on that last car. And we got one that we put in the shop the other day.
I don't understand that in the United States, there's not a Ford Edge that we can buy.
But sure, there's tons of them sitting on the parking lot over there. They just weren't on state contract. So Dan
So
and
the
I.
problem is the state contract, the problem's not with Ford.
Procurement issue.
Yeah, Dan and I are gonna do some outreach and we're gonna see if we can't find something, cause we need to.
There has to be an alternative way around that. If the state can't fulfill the contract, we should be able to go outside and pick it up.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna.
bet I
ask
could
for
buy
the
one this
leeway.
afternoon.
Sir?
Bet I could get one this afternoon.
I could too. I could too.
So why don't you be searching ways around that? Documenting how long we've been waiting on this thing and how long they've been dragging their feet, so
Yeah,
I don't know
so
what the procedure is to do it, but.
That's our next step. We've jumped through a few little hoops and now we're gonna find a way through this last little spot.
Is that through the facilities commission?
No,
Okay.
No, this is, these are contracts that multiple dealers agree to through a smart buy system.
Okay, state.
And you go out and you submit what you want on smart buy and you get.
Ford Edge is not a big deal with a big agency, but it's a hell of a big deal, those little groups like us. You know, one thing on the finance before we get off of it, and down in the lower half of that, and I asked Lisa this question, she gave me the perfect answer. On our analysis of budget less expenditures, you'll notice consumable supplies is 146% of what we were budgeted. And our answer, which made perfect sense, we bought in the first quarter all those things that we were not able to buy last quarter because we ran out of money. So it's all front end loaded for the year, is why that number is high. And to me, the important on this page is the bottom right-hand corner shows 25.7% spent, which is exactly 25% is our ideal number per quarter. So we're right on budget on what we're supposed to be doing, or it would appear that we are. The numbers vary throughout the document, but am I right about that, Dan? The bottom line, we spent about 25%, and that's a quarter, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that, and Dan can refer back to this too, because I can't remember the numbers and everything else here. But in our receipts, you'll see, which page is that? It has our collections on it. And we're still in a good place on the collections as far as what's coming in. But I think you're gonna see another big increase on that. You'll see the numbers of the licensees go back up and you'll see revenue go back up.
You're pretty close, even with that drop in
Yeah,
renewal. You're
there's a
within
bunch of them sitting
$4,000
out
what we
there.
were last year.
yeah. I think you're gonna see a bunch more of them coming in. So, and that tells me too, that I have quite a few that aren't renewed. But I have a lot of new ones that came in and revenue staying pretty close.
Again, if you look at the bottom right corner, it shows 93.5. That means we've collected 93.5 of what we anticipated collecting.
Mhm.
But again, with this drop because of fingerprints and renewals, that should pick back up this next quarter.
So also a big drop in exam revenues for the master test.
And we've been
Yeah,
expecting
what-
that.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we lost a lot of that.
Mhm.
That's about to be completely gone.
Yeah, we'll lose all that, but all that money will
Well,
start
right,
going to
yeah.
Pearson View instead of to us.
Yeah. it's
But keep in mind, and we looked at this before we ever went to Pearson View, less than 15% of the total revenue that we get at this agency comes from examinations. So even if we lost that 15%, which we won't lose all of it, because we do get some fees, with the growth of the agency, we're still sitting pretty, we're in good shape, so. By outsourcing these exams, it was we took less than a 15% hit on our revenue. And that's nothing compared to the progress that we made in eliminating that backlog. So money well spent in my mind.
And if you don't mind, maybe I can get, Kevin or Dan to run back and see about Steve before we move to Steve's part.
Yeah, I tell you, we've been going about an hour. What do you say? Let's take another 10-minute break.
Okay, because if he's not,
Steve's not feeling well, so Lisa may.
I'll do his, but if we could take a little break before that.
Sure, it's about 9 minutes after 12. Let's take a break until 12:20. And we'll come back up and at least if you're finished, we'll take it up with enforcement.
You're live.
Okay, it's 27. Let's call the meeting back to order. And I understand Steve's kind of under the weather along with about 50% of everybody else. So Lisa, if you would handle the enforcement, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir, no, not a problem. We've got, a page in there for you to review. That's the summary of the complaint cases and the administrative penalties that have been imposed during those, the meetings that we've had. It also includes information on unlicensed activity statistics. That's under tab 7. There's been 9 meetings where we have, reviewed and imposed penalties. And during those 9 meetings, we reviewed 167 cases with a total of 94 penalties imposed. And 19 of those were, contracting without the proper license. And in addition to, during those 9 meetings, we also reviewed 21 cases for false information. So, and false information may include the criminal background question, or it might include falsification of hours on a form or something like that. So, it's been pretty busy, to say the least.
In talking to you and Steve, the increased number of falsification issues is in direct correlation to the increase in number of fingerprints.
Yes, sir.
We have a lot of folks that are reporting on their application, no convictions, no criminal history. I'm clean as a whistle, and then you get a fingerprint, they're Jack the Ripper. So,
And, in addition to that, the unlicensed individuals that we've caught and issued penalties lately, there's been 8 of those out of that, 94 penalties that were imposed. 8 of those went to totally unlicensed people, as well as 4 apprentices that were contracting for work without a license. So, no tradesmen, and there were 3 journeymen that were involved in some complaints that were contracting that were also written notices, so. The enforcement department remains busy. We do have the one new individual in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that everyone met last time, and we're getting that person up and running, so. There'll be somebody back out on the streets again in that area.
Lisa, just so you know, Mason Roy really did a nice job at our town hall meetings. He attended both of them and actually made a presentation at one. And I think he was really well received. The folks liked to interact with him and know who he is, and he did a nice job.
And I explained to him because he did such a grand job that he's probably gonna get to do that.
Get to do it again?
Yeah,
The next one, I don't think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna just send Kevin and,
I don't
Amazing.
even feel the need to go anymore. Kevin did such a good job.
yeah,
He was an easy
Lisa, you
guy.
and I can just stay home.
Yeah, yeah.
Good work.
That's what happens. That's what happens. In addition to those, meetings, there was also 2 meetings that were specific to the review of, examination applications and renewal applications, registration applications. And, there were 106 that were reviewed that had things that were more serious than 1 or 2 misdemeanors. But, we reviewed 43 of those applications. They were brand new applications, and, they were able to be processed, but they did take some extra review. Now, the number of renewals, there were 48 that were renewed, and that's part of fingerprint processing. There were 15 that were denied or revoked. Quite a few.
That is a lot.
In a quarter. So, a lot of work,
We're losing a few for that,
yeah.
as we should, because we have a greater obligation to protect the public than we do to issue a license in my mind.
And,
So when we run across those that are potentially a threat to the public, we are duty bound not to issue them a license. So
and the other thing that has occurred is we have found that some individuals that had previously renewed were actually incarcerated. And so that's almost, I mean, that's out of our hands to a certain degree, that they, during the period of time that they slipped through and got renewed, they were actually incarcerated, so they're really and truly, their license was revoked.
It was, it's a matter of law.
Yeah.
That they're revoked from incarcerated.
And it's unfortunate, but there were, several that got caught up in that. And so we've streamlined our process the best we could, and we're trying to be very consistent so that when we find these things, that this is what it is.
Didn't we have somebody one time that renewed his license while he was in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Got his wife or sister or somebody to do it all for
To
him?
get his continuing education.
We caught him.
All that.
We caught him, but he actually renewed it while he was in jail.
So it's rolled into, we've had to put a few more steps in.
Bad, we need plumbers, we'll take them out, we can get them.
In addition to, all of those duties, they also wrote in the enforcement department 27 different cease and desist orders. And a lot of times you'll see that list of those 27 different individuals there. There may not have been proof, but we felt confident enough in that case that we felt they needed to cease and desist because they had no way to get into compliance because they had no license in most cases.
Lisa, you can, check into this, you may not know off the top of your head, but the first two, although they have different complaint numbers, appear to be identical.
We count them as, two different items. They are two complaint numbers, but they got two different cease and desists for two different incidents.
Oh, okay, so it's the same person, you don't include them all in one,
Right,
you give them two seasons.
yeah, because there was two different
That answers
locations.
the question.
Yeah. I looked, I saw that one also. In addition, under tab 11, you have the board order of administrative penalties. Those are paid by agreement. So everyone that's on your list, this big list, and we will put all this information out on the CPE Google Docs so we can share it. The plumbers like to look at it in class and that sort of thing. You'll see that, all of these penalties were paid by agreement, so that these are not cases that are gonna go anywhere other than, they're gonna be posted to their license on the website, public information. They paid their penalty, they're done. But you can see what they were, charged for. And in particular, I won't necessarily go through them by name.
You know what I did? There were 33 of them, 15 of them had to do with unlicensed activity or an improper license. So that keeps in 2023, we had 646 different investigations. And 45% of those had to do with unlicensed or improper license activity. So the point of my saying that is to those that think that that's not a priority for us, it's a big priority for us and continues to be. 100% of the cease and desist orders have to do with unlicensed or inappropriate license. And 45% of the ones that are agreed orders have to do with unlicensed. So it continues to be a priority for the agency.
And bear in mind that cease and desist order, that might not have been the absolute best case, but we are certain that after talking to that individual, that they were not gonna get into compliance, they weren't gonna they couldn't get into compliance in that particular circumstance. However, that cease and desist, that's history. We told you not to do that. So if you're gonna do it again and we catch you, that's gonna be a lot more serious violation.
You know,
It's almost, you're getting a break in a way.
I hate to say this, but really you need to follow up on those and we need to hang a coyote's skin on the wall to send a message to the rest of them. We really need to nail somebody that's not paying attention to these cease and desist orders, to send a message to everybody else.
And occasionally some of them might get caught in a sting.
I hope so.
So, we gave you warning, is what it amounted to. And all that does is, it adds credibility to our case, if we're giving you a cease and desist before. And you'll also see in the back of tab 11, under those administrative penalties that have been agreed to and have been paid, you will see the repeat offender list. And in this particular number of items here, there's 3 people that are repeat offenders. And they're listed on the back. And so their penalties that are on this part of the order are somewhat higher because they are repeat offenders. And keep in mind, this is an action item that the board chair will need to sign off on. And I'll answer any questions I can, and what I can't answer, I'll
Jesse?
I move we approve the, agreed final orders list, as presented and authorize the board chair to sign on behalf of the board.
Is there a second?
administrate.
I think it.
Jared Black, second. Any discussion or question on any of these items or the cease and desist orders? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay. You know, Lisa, I noticed that since Steve's not here, I won't question, but it seemed like the revenue of enforcement is down some compared to last year too.
The collection of penalties, you mean?
Yeah,
Typically it goes down at that first quarter, that's during Christmas time. Once tax checks process, next quarter will be a good collection month. And, we're working on the collections to do the online and use credit cards too.
when are you gonna do that?
It's on the burner. I'm not gonna even put a date on it because it costs a little bit of money, but I'm trying to earmark some. We'll see. But I think it'll make a difference. We also have a new person that's going to come into, one of the 3 new people that's coming on tomorrow has a finance background and will be helping, push some of these items over to collections at the Attorney General's. They're also going to be trained in how to put warrant holds on should they win the lotto or whatever. We've got movement. and
You know,
it's gonna help.
collecting fees by credit cards is a big deal for me for the last couple of years. For 2 respects. Number one, Steve, and it's okay, allows them to pay it out per month. So it'll eliminate that function that enforcement's currently having to keep up with. It'll get us out of the collection business and turn it over to MasterCard, who ought to be doing the collection. So I'm real hopeful, you and I have talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's important, but it hasn't been a priority compared to everything else that we've been doing.
And it's also gonna, sending some over to the Attorney General's office. They actually do set up some payment plans for people that have certain level of assets and certain level of penalties and that sort of thing too, so. So we'll have this other person that can help handle these things, because when they get paid through the Attorney General, they're gonna come in and put it in finance, and finance is gonna see them, and then they have to get forwarded back over to enforcement. So-
You know, it's important that we collect these penalties and we watch the revenue stream coming in. But keep in mind, we're not allowed to spend any of the money
Correct.
that we get off of enforcement activity. That does not go back into the plumbing board pot to credit toward the amount of revenue we're required to raise. And if you really, some people don't agree with that, but it's really good public policy. You don't want the traffic cop out there funding his budget, handing out tickets. All of a sudden, it becomes revenue rather than enforcement. So it's really good public policy that we do it, but we still have to watch it and keep our revenue up.
It goes right back in the general fund, and we wanna show that we've made an effort to put that money back in the general fund, and it may be help for a pothole or mental health or whatever it goes into that fund, so it's still going to,
Lord only knows.
yeah, for the good of the state.
Yeah. But it's really about enforcement. It's not about money for us, because we don't get credit for any of that money that we collect. We get sometimes from time to time, people claim, well, all you're doing is raising money for your agency. Truth of the matter is, we don't get a nickel of it. So it's about enforcement. It's not about money for us. Enforcement is just a tool. Money is just a tool you use to enforce people to do the right thing, so.
And we have that one other item that we left there too, if anybody wants to. We left you a list of next available dates and that sort of thing too. We've got so many things going on, so.
You know, are you done?
I'm done. I'll answer any other questions. I'm done.
Okay. Any questions, Lisa, having to do with her report or enforcement report? A lot of you don't know, Lisa's back in the saddle. She got her job through enforcement. She was enforcement for how many years before you came over to the dark side?
From 90 to 2011, it's a long time.
Yeah, long time. So Lisa's background's in enforcement, so. And it certainly served us well, so. You know, our next, board meeting, I would suspect, without giving you a particular date, it will be after Lisa gets the master exam online. And she can give us a report how that's working. Agenda items, I suspect that we might have either sent out the letter and maybe got some initial responses on this med gas thing. So although I don't expect a action item, I think we'll have some further discussion on maybe some of the comments that might have come in. Everyone is really happy that I'm not putting on the agenda direct supervision and virtual supervision. But you know what? You can't beat a guy that won't ever give up, and I'm not giving up on that issue. We may come at it a different way. We may do a scope of practice or something else, but we are underutilizing 42,000 people in the industry that are registered as apprentices. Many times that have got requisite skills to do some jobs. And I am determined by some shape, form, or fashion to hit on a way to better utilize those people to eliminate unlicensed plumbing activity. Now, I don't know what that's gonna be. Yes, ma'am.
And in the interim, I want to say that those, apprentices that have endorsements that do have a specific scope of work already spelled out to do, the apprentice training class that's available to them seems to be a popular item. And they can use it to renew, they can use it to obtain an additional endorsement and makes them more valuable.
Where are we on that subject, Lisa, on apprentice CE?
It's up and running. A lot of people have it. I mean, I'm not gonna go into it.
But
too
at
long,
this point, is that required in order for renewal? The answer is probably no.
They're required to take CE for renewal apprentice. All of these apprentices that are on our list, they have to have some kind of CE. And they should go ahead and take the new apprentice CE.
You know, something else that's significant about that is a master or a journeyman who works a bunch of apprentices can also attend that class, and that class will apply to their CE. So just because it's called apprentice doesn't mean that a master might want to take all of his apprentices in there and work with them, train them. So,
And we can-
and when he does that, am I right, Lisa, that
Sure.
he can also get credit, or she can also get credit for that?
And we can put it on an actual item or something on this next go around and we'll probably have some statistics on how many of them have taken it.
Maybe that will be a good discussion item also.
Yeah, we should have some statistics on how many have taken it by the next board meeting too. Anybody have any dates that I should block out? You wanna send them to me when you block them out?
Yeah, that would help if you would report to Lisa or Lynn. There are periods of time that you're not available, will help us a little bit in setting the date. Could we try to set them where we can get the most attendance we possibly can on the board, so.
And we've got,
And I'm real sensitive. I know what you're saying. The more notice, the better we lock it in on your calendars, and we'll.
And not just for
try to do a
us,
better
but
job.
for the
Everyone.
folks that like to come and attend too.
we've got a whole quarter of stuff that we've got big plans for this next quarter, so.
Okay.
A lot of things on the calendar already.
My guess is late March, early April. will be our next one. So, if you, to the extent that you can, protect the last week of March, first week or two of April, I would suspect might be the dates.
That's
All right, public comment. We had a couple of people who had indicated they wanted to speak public comment. Don, do you have those?
Yes, and we have one.
One, who is that?
Mr. Mata.
Oh, Mr. Mata, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board. Just want to extend the great thanks to all that you've been doing for the industry and, utilize the ATMO as a resource on, you know, the ASSE agenda, item number 9, anything we can do to help, get that word out, like I said earlier. Please utilize.
All right, thank you. We look forward to your comments about our discussion today. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Scott Wynn.
Mr. Wynn, are you around?
He's.
online, yeah.
There he is.
Scott, are you there?
Hello, yes, thanks. I'm trying to get my camera turned on, but having problems with that. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, we do appreciate the entire board, the entire staff for everything they're doing, of course. I do have a lot of feelings and mixed emotions about this phrase continuity, but it would obviously take more than my allotted 5 minutes. So I'm just going to reserve that. Looking forward to the questionnaire from Lisa. Would be happy to respond to that. I do have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that topic and what has been said in this meeting today. A few things that we run into a lot in our continuing ed courses, questions that we have asked, and we try to give them answers. One thing I will stress is we are huge on this Ask Kevin. Almost every CE course we have nowadays, we actually pull up the database or pull up the website, and go to Ask Kevin, and it is hugely popular. And again, it's surprising how few people even know it's out there. So we do stress that a lot. We do get a lot of answers to a lot of questions, not only from the plumbers and inspectors, but also questions that we had. The many less questions we have to above Lisa and all of those. So that is hugely popular. We do appreciate that. The main things are that I can't get a clear answer for on Ask Kevin is people ask me, why do we pause and quit taking exams when we're preparing to offer those at Pearson VUE? And I know you can't necessarily answer my question directly, but if there's somehow we could relay that information out to us, we'd be happy to pass it on to the personnel. I just don't have a good answer for that. Why they couldn't continue the exam as is until they finally do click over to Pearson VUE. And I'm sure there's a good reason for that. I don't know what that is. The Ask Kevin also, when you ask it what exams are not being conducted at Pearson VUE, actually tells you what is being conducted at Pearson VUE. And the best I can tell is everything except the master, the fire sprinkler, and the inspector. It addresses target dates for the master, but it doesn't. It just says stay tuned. I wonder if there's any kind of updates we could give the folks on when the fire sprinkler and the inspector exam may be offered via Pearson VUE, because that is helping a lot. This Pearson VUE is extremely helpful getting people processed through and so on and so forth. So that's been a great advantage this last year or so as well. And then lastly, I would like to offer ICC has a huge staff, and we are more than happy to act as a resource. We'd be happy to help Lisa, the board, any way we possibly can. Thanks again for everything y'all do.
Thank you for your comments, and they're well noted. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
We have two more. Mr. Cody Copeland.
Mr. Copeland, or can you hear us?
Hi there. Yes, let me turn my camera on here. And it's not allowing me to turn my camera on, but yes, Mr. Chairman and everyone else on the board there, thank you very much for hearing me out. I would just like to, my name is Cody Copeland. I'm a reporter with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I was hoping to request any information on the investigation into the explosion that occurred here at the Sandman Signature Hotel. I know the board's doing an investigation, and I was also hoping to inquire about any investigation into the practice of what I'm calling license renting, where a company, I've only heard of one company doing it, but a company paying a master plumber to use his license to pull permits but not use him or his team. And just having the master plumber show up occasionally to check over the work before an inspection. It's just come to my attention that y'all can't answer questions here in the meeting. I understand that, but I'd like to make myself available. If someone would like to contact me afterwards to discuss this issue, I'd really appreciate it. I'll leave my contact info there in the chat for y'all. So thank you very much for hearing me out, and y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. We do appreciate it, and you are correct. We can't answer questions in general, but specifically not regarding an ongoing case. It's the agency who's doing the investigation. So any questions, I know I'm not supposed to answer a question, but I'll tell you the procedure. Steve Davis, our Director of Enforcement, will be the person that all of our information having to do with that incident in Fort Worth would come to. As by law, our board cannot get any information on that prior to it coming to us. We will be the final say so as to whether any violation was found. So it's kind of like a quasi judicial proceeding. It would be ex parte communication for us to be getting any of that information just one-sided. So I would direct you to Davis, our Director of Enforcement, to give you any information he's able to give you. And by the way, just as a note, I've read a lot of your columns. You did a good job. You really do good work up there.
Thank you very much.
Start. You bet.
Thank you. You'll take care.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Richard Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, are you there?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having me today.
Hi, Mr. Anderson.
To the board and TSBPE staff and everybody in attendance, thank you. As some of the previous speakers have said, for all you're doing for the plumbing industry in the great state of Texas. Our members are those of the building life safety professionals or your licensed plumbing inspectors. That makes up the majority of our membership. I would also like to extend that olive tree to the board as a resource to connecting with those various building departments throughout the state for your town hall events, getting rules out to them, and recognizing that skilled labor in Texas increases the successfulness of inspections and moves projects forward. So ICC totally supports everything the board is doing there in Texas. And as for the medical gas and vacuum thing, I too have some comments on that, but I will save those for when that email comes out, Mr. Chair, and let you know how, my experience with that over the years has affected those inspections when people don't necessarily braze on a regular basis, because brazing for medical gas and vacuum is different than soft soldering or brazing on a water line, right? We need 100% full for bacteria growth and other things. And it's a totally different process than normal brazing on water. Now, the next thing that I would like to address on the agenda that was brought up by our executive director, Lisa Hill, was the reciprocity issue. As such, I cover several states for the International Code Council, attend several similar plumbing board meetings or licensing board meetings throughout the country, and would be happy to make connections with the necessary people in those states. I recently just had a conversation with the Bureau or the Department of Labor and Statistics in Alaska, and they have also been tasked. Their chief mechanical inspector is in charge of plumbing licensing there, and he has been tasked with reciprocity for other states for disaster relief and other things. Here in Colorado, I believe I've reached out to Lisa and offered to connect her with Dora up here. We have contacts in Utah. We have some contacts in New Mexico as well that might be able to help the board's efforts with that reciprocity issue. So as my coworker Scott Wynn mentioned, please consider ICC just an additional resource for the board and all of the plumbing contractors in the state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Yeah, I believe that's all of them. Having to do with the reciprocity, I would suggest that anyone that has any leads to direct those to Lynn Latone. She's kind of the point person on our reciprocity. So if you have some contacts that you want to send her, maybe Lynn might be the best, most efficient way to do that. Having to do with us stopping testing while we're converting over to computer-based testing. We don't stop testing. We've never stopped testing. We're continuing to give master exams, and we've always given master exams. They're just not as fast as they used to be. And it is somewhat backed up. But the notion that we stop giving master exams is absolutely, that you want to send us that, leave it alone, stay out of it. Modify it this way, modify it that way, this would, but always keep in mind, it's gonna have to do something to protect the consumer or advance the industry and enhance the plumber. If it doesn't do one of those two things, it's not to enhance your program, it's not to get you to sell more hours, it's not for that. So unless you can relate it back to protection of the consumer or expanding the industry to better serve the consumer, try to keep those focal points in mind when you're giving your comments. And we'll get that email or letter out, within the next 30 to 60 days, to all interested parties. If you do want to make sure that you get that request, let us know that in some way or fashion. We'll be sure to put you on our list. So, anyone else? Ron, it's difficult sometimes on Zoom to see if you had any questions or comments, anything that was missed that you wanted to cover?
I'm all good.
Okay, anyone else on the board before we adjourn? Okay, well, it is 1 o'clock and we did exactly what we're supposed to. No other comments? Meeting adjourned. There's sandwiches in here if anybody wants them. Y'all come eat sandwiches.